Hi, I'm going to show you how to make one of these, which is a little stamp storage and die storage system that I've put together myself. And it's basically built around what I've been previously using. And why I'm not continuing with what I've been previously using is because, as you can see, I have no idea what it is. What I've been using are the refills for the Tim Holtz stamp binder because it's a really good size. You get 8 in a packet for an extremely cheap price. It's very tough, it's got the punched out bit here and it's got the holes there. So it's worked marvellously for all of my dies and for my stamps and my stamp sets. As you can see, all I'm using are treasury tags threaded through, which are as cheap as anything from any stationery shop, and they do what I want, which is flip through to see what I have. However, you find that when it's on the shelf it's a bit on the anonymous side. Plus I want to keep collections together where I have a stamp and a die. So I've been making a few of these various colours. I've got a little ring pull at the back. Now don't ask me where these came from. They're like a paper fastener at the end. I think they were Dovecraft, I don't know. They were cheap anyway, and I got them at a stamp show years and years and years ago. So I'm just basically using up any of my scrapbook papers, and when they're on the shelf they're looking pretty neat and tidy, and they're just about the right size. Now I could have bought these, but I haven't found anything that is the size I want, which in other words accommodates those Tim Holtz folders, because the Tim Holtz folders are what I have bought an awful lot of, and they're the system that I've been using. So whether I have them in loose or I have them in and they're still on a treasury tag, it doesn't really matter, because at least then I can label them on the spine. I know what I have. It's colourful on the shelf, and things are not falling all over the place. So what am I using to make it? Well, basically it's a recycled cereal box, and that's all. All you need is a cereal box, a thinnish sheet of scrapbooking paper, 12 by 12 for the inside, and 2 sheets of the stiffest scrapbooking paper you might have, in my case double-sided, for the outside, and a pair of scissors and some glue, and basically that's it. So I, for some reason, decided that the height of mine was going to be 10.5. I think that's because the ruler I was using, I went straight off the end and it had a ½ centimetre measure on it, so I'm now stuck with 10.5 centimetres. So how I'm doing this is basically marking it on the corner. I'm using a Sharpie here so that you can see what I'm doing, so I'm just doing a little notch on that corner and a little mark on that corner so that I can see them, and the other end is 21.5. Now measure this to suit yourself, the height of your shelf, etc. For me, this works for me, so that's what I'm going with. And then I'm simply going from side to side here and making a line across, feeling off my ruler, which I'm just ruining, going down to the lower mark, back across, because that's where my 2 10cm marks are, and back up to that other end. And you're not wasting anything from the box, and it can be any size cereal box you want. You may have to cut down, it just depends on yourself. I'm just going to double check I did get my height right. Yep, so those will match. So I'm all happy there. Right, now to cut this down. I've done a few of those, as you might have guessed, and my easiest method, quite frankly, I'm cutting down right down the top bit, down to the middle here, which is giving me a starting point, and I do have a reason for that. And then I can just simply follow along with scissors. Probably not quite so long, scissors would have been better, but anyway, these will do fine. As I say, I did undo the whole thing, have it laid flat, glued that, etc, etc. An awful lot more work, and why bother if you don't have to? So there you go. Now we're back down the other side. This will be as neat as anything when it's finished, so don't worry. Actually, my hardest bit here is these long scissors, which are a little bit too long. Anyway, right, now then, that top bit, why have I cut that a little bit narrower? Well, rather, why have I gone down the middle of that narrower edge? Because it's going to tuck in at the back, and I'm going to need just a tiny bit of space. So I'm actually going to cut that little sliver off, and that's just going to give me a little bit of wiggle room. Next thing is lay it down, and I want this entire bottom edge to be straight, which, as you can see, it isn't. I want that to be a bit shorter, so knife, scissors, paper cutter, whatever you have. And again, I just simply want this to be straight. I'm going to level it up with this piece so everything is the same height. And yes, I do have a reason for that. So there we are. And I think this is a sharp-ish blade, so let's hope, because me and scissors aren't necessarily the best of friends. Right, and I can just follow that down myself. As you've gathered, the brand of cereal does not matter. Right, I'll just get rid of these bits, which I no longer want. So, how this is going to fit together, you've got the box here, and this is not going to get thrown away, this is going to tuck inside it, like so. And that is just giving me a little bit of wiggle room. Now you can see here that's bowing a bit. Some of these boxes seem to be wider than others, so in that case I will just take a little sliver off of there as well, because this is going to be inside, so it'll tuck itself round. Once it's stuck, it'll be absolutely fine. So again, I'm going to fit that inside, and I'm going to fit it inside here. Now that single piece of lining paper, now you can see it's going right down into the bottom flat, and that single piece of lining paper is what's going to cover that beautifully, so I will have a nice edge, which this isn't, so I'll just give that a little nip. Right, that's step one. So the next thing to do is I'm going to cover the box. Now, with all paper, as with all fabric, there is a direction. If you're bending your paper and you're pressing it and that's fighting you a bit, you'll find the other way is floppier. Now that's resisting me. That's floppy. So I'm going to go this way. Why? Because it's going to follow around the corners, and it's going to score easier. So I'm sorry this is a little bit on the dark side. Now I'm going to wrap this around the end like that. I'm not going to do the obvious, which you'd think would be this way, because it doesn't fit exactly, and I think from the point of view of looking at it on the shelf, I'd rather see that bit and without any seams attached, so that's what I'm doing. So my first job is to lay it on paper, and I'm allowing this bit here to be my hem, so I will just simply draw along that with the Sharpie so you can see it. So I'll be using this whole sheet here. I just want a bit of a tuck in, so what, ½ inch, couple of centimetres, whatever measurement you wish to use will be fine, and that's crooked, of course, because I'm using a wood ruler so you can see it, and needless to say it's got a bow in it. So I think we'll be moving to that one, which I can see through, which will be a lot better. Okay, so that's approximately the middle. In fact, let's have a look and see where the middle is here, because that's where I want the pattern to show on the spine. So I'm going to mark it on both sides there, so you can pretty much guarantee that mark there it's going to be a straight line. So I'm going to give it a crease. I'm not giving it a hard crease on the board because I have no doubt if I do there'll be some sort of a disaster, as in the paper will stretch or something. So we're going to go here. The next crease is going to be roughly here. So I'll give it a bend just to get it started. Now then, you want to know how on earth we're going to work out the measurements. Well, that bit at the bottom there, I'll turn it sideways so you can see. That bit there is going to be the hem, and I'm obviously going to need the same height, so I'm going to mark it here, and that can go straight across. And then that bit is going to come down, so I've got my hem there, I want it about there, and on the other side I'm going again from that centre crease, I want it about there. I want to turn in, so I'm not bothering to measure, I always tend to do it by eye. That will do nicely, and I'll get the scissors again. So I'll cut that bit of excess off. Oh, I can see I went too high there, so I'll just scoot over there. So that bit, keep that. I want a piece now to go the width of the spine, or rather the height of the spine, so that's going to be to about there. And roughly there. This is going to go inside the spine when I make the hole to hold the fastener, so that I've got a double layer for strength, and then when I line it that will also cover up the inside part. Then you're left with that bit. You might want to keep it for a tag or something. So far so good, that's step one. So now I need to glue it. So here's where you want to be quite generous. I'm using a white glue, which is a PVA, and an old card. I'm not bothering so much about the top edges because I'll have to get in with the scissors on those and do a bit of adjusting, no doubt. Right, make sure you have plenty. I'd rather in fact have a little bit too much than not enough, because this needs to stick extremely well. And if I'd have had any sense, I'd have had some scrap paper, but there you go. So right, that's roughly in the right place, as you can see here, where I had my previous score line. So I'm just going to smooth that over and to the other side. Now, the rule of thumb is, if you have paper with a lot of glue on it, get it away, because you just know that that is exactly where your nice paper is going to want to stick. So now with my hand inside, I can really smooth it down with another credit card going round the corners. And again there. So we can see which bits are not sticking, because don't forget it's a shiny box, so that doesn't help. I'm just going to grab a cloth so I can smooth away any excess if I need to. Just get a little bit more under there. So that side's pretty nice. We're stuck. We just need a little bit more under that edge. So there we go. Right, I'm going to get another pair of scissors now, because those are too long. Right, now I'm just going to snip into the corners here. So just go right up, and I'm taking a little tiny triangle out, very small, as you can see, a sliver. I'm doing the same on that side. And then I'm going to turn this one in. Again, if you don't have enough glue, just add a bit more. This is why I wasn't too worried about the edges at this stage, because you can guarantee when you get to this stage you'll always need to apply more glue, or at least ways I do. Right, so that's done. Now this one, and this one. Just going to give it a good press. So that is now stuck, and you've got a lovely edge. So at the top I need to nick it down to here. Again, I'm just going to go in slightly, and here I'm at more of an angle because it's an obtuse angle, so it won't just lay flat. If these things can fight you, it's the rule, they always do. I've learnt the hard way by doing, what is it, 7 boxes now, that you just have to go with the flow and tolerate it. Now I'm not so worried that these are not absolutely even. If you are, go ahead and measure, but to be quite honest, by the time this lining is in, number one, you're not going to see it, and number two, it's going to be lined. It's for holding things, it's not for people to do an inspection on how perfect your margins are. So here's where you can press down. Ah, see? Now that's where you do want to pick up. I want that right over that edge. So here's where you apply a little bit of muscle if you need to. No, that's still not behaving. And I think that needs a bit more glue anyway, so that might just force it into submission. So just feed it over with your fingers. Do it that way round. Perfect. Perfect. Now you see there, I needed to nick a little bit more off. And perfect. Okay, I've got my pokey tool out ready now, and I'm ready to do my second section with my little hanger things as well. So they're to hand, and here's my next piece of paper. So I already know that's the right direction, and I've got my scissors and my ruler. Good. Oh, I'm doing well, I'm doing well. Sorry about that, I knocked the camera. Okay, so next step, I want to go and wrap my paper around this bit. So obviously I won't need all of it, so the first thing I'm going to do is roughly mark here. So there we are. give it a crease. You notice that I'm not using a bone folder, I'm not using my thumbnail, I'm just giving it a gentle crease. So that's pretty much wide enough for that. You see, now that could do with being a little bit more, so I can just ease that over quite simply because I haven't creased that paper beyond bearing. So there we are, so that's to that one. Then I'm going to mark here roughly, and I'll crease again. Turn it this way around this time. As long as you make sure your bottom edge is straight, the rest of it will be, so no worries. Right, so that should fit. Sit, yes, no problem. And I need it to go let's get you in shot here so you can see what I'm doing. So now I've got that spine crease, that's wrapping around, and I need it to go to here. And I'll just keep that on there, spin that around. Not that I don't trust my own measurements, but it's always good just to check that you're about right. So yeah, we are. Near as damn it anyway. So I can cut that there. Now, obviously I'm going to allow about this much again for my hem. So I want that height here. So laying it between my marks. If I'm allowing that, don't forget space for turn-offs. So we're going to go about here, and I'll connect that up. And I'll do the same on the other side. So that's echoing, that wants to be about there. That's good enough, that's near enough, because it's all going to tuck in, so nobody is going to see it. And for you, I will draw a line. So those are my crease marks again here, so up to that, and up to that. So I'll cut that bit. And of course I got it wrong, I should look extremely silly. But the nice thing is that it does give you a usable bit for something else. So, okay, we'll check again before we glue, in case we've gone disastrously wrong. So there's my hem section that I marked. Wraps that side, ace perfecto, and glue time. So again, this is just ordinary cheapo school glue, you couldn't get anything cheaper. Elmer's, anything. Now the one glue I didn't like for this actually is Mod Podge, and you'll be wondering why, and it's because it dried very, very quickly, and it also did not seem to like the shiny surface. Now if you have Mod Podge and you want to use Mod Podge, maybe the best advice is for you to get an emery board or a piece of fine sanding paper and rough up the surface of the cereal box a bit, because Mod Podge and shiny just doesn't seem to sync. And I had a heck of a job with one of them, and to the point I nearly threw the box out, which is not what you want to do. Right, so, oh, no, I'm too far down there, aren't I? What an idiot. So let's have a look here, because I want my tuck in, and I'm being a bit too generous. Right, there we are. That's about right. I mean, you could have waited and done the bottom part with both at the same time. I prefer not. I like to do mine in stages. So again, I've got a little supermarket key card thing here, so I just use that for smoothing over. And again, my hand's inside, so that's supporting it. If you're worried about the pattern matching, that's entirely up to yourself, but you will find you'll probably waste a bit of paper that way. Now then, let's just see if we need any more glue. Take the smear off the side of the paper. That seems to be fine, because what you don't want is a massive overlap where you've got a ridge, and what you also don't want is a gap. Now if you found that the paper has stretched, which it often can, you might want to take a sliver off there. So if you do, it's entirely up to yourself, and if I've done this too much, then I've got washi tape to fill in, and actually that's fine. I just don't want this catching when it's going in and out of the shelf. And that one, that looks about spot on. Maybe a sliver. Neat people would of course measure everything to within an inch of its life, but I've found even with a good scrapbook paper, once you have this glue applied and it's soaked in a bit, like using wallpaper for example, which is also a good covering, you may well find that your paper has stretched. So all the measuring in the world will not help you. So again, in the crease, so a slight sliver away there and a slight sliver away there. Now I am going to need more glue, so I'm just going to put a little puddle on the side on that scrap paper, and I will just pick it up on with the corner of the card. Always make sure you've got plenty on your edges, because you need them to stick well. And you can see where that's dried. If it's sopping wet with glue, that isn't brilliant, and if it's too dry, that also isn't brilliant. So you need a happy medium where it sticks, but you don't have it squirting out everywhere. So again, I'm just going to put that down. I can go back in if I need a bit more. Right, and I give it a wiggle. Okay, so corner and a bit of a chunk out. Get off. Yeah. Corner and a bit of a chunk out. So far so good. Bit more glue off on the side. Yeah. And of course if there's a sticky side, that's exactly where I always put my hand. Every time, you can guarantee it. Right. Just feed it over with your fingers. Even this really thick scrapbook paper is actually quite pliable once you've got the glue on it, and then you can go down and burnish it once it's stuck. And I need some more on the bottom there, as you can see. Probably because it's several layers, and also because it's annoying me. So if it can misbehave, it will. Right, that is much better. That is much better. Yeah. And never a cloth in sight when you need one. Right. Okay, now for burnishing. So this is where I can go in with my little plastic card. And already that is looking pretty respectable. Now I have that extra strip that I cut here, which is going to go on the inside. I don't care which way up it goes. You can see the side doesn't even fit properly. It absolutely is irrelevant because this is just strengthening up where I'm going to punch the hole. That's the only reason for it. So actually that's just a short bit and that's going to be in the middle. It'll just stop my hole pull from pulling out. So back with my gluey bit of paper again. I've got a nice clean patch here. Oh, go away. Make sure this is well glued, because this is what's going to give it the strength. So that's now just going in the spine, more or less in the middle. If your box is wide enough you can get your hand in, you can just screw it down like that. I'm not fussed it's straight, it's acting as a strengthener. Now here on the base I'm going to cut another strip from my excess. This could be any paper. If you're very short of paper it doesn't even have to be matching. So marker pen wants to be roughly there and there, and I'll actually do this on the cutter because I never could cut a straight line in my life, so I don't expect things are going to change now. And I've immediately lost my marks because I've turned the paper around. Oh well, must have been this bit somewhere. No, that's that one. Oh, there we are. I could have probably been better showing you this on a piece of plain cardstock, except I seriously don't seem to have any. I think everything I have is absolutely highly patterned, and funnily enough I just happen to like a lot of colour and a lot of patterns, so there you go. Right, just check that bit's going to fit over, which it is, and that's going to hold all those ends down. So that's that little sticky bit there. This one I do want to be generous with because I want this to stick and this will hold everything else. Because don't forget, you're dealing with a box that has got a shiny surface, so it doesn't really want to accept glue, but the paper is sticking to itself, and of course it's sticking to the inside, so it's all good because it's all sort of reinforcing itself over and over. See, that bit's a little bit loose again, not the splodge of the gluey one, thank you. So I'll just slide that under that edge, a little bit of excess there. This will go on top, and that is going to be a nice finish. And once that dries, that will be rock solid. That's just a little bit gluey there, which I didn't want it to be, but these things happen, so just rub any excess off with your finger. Right, so there we are. So that's it so far. Now that's going to go on one side upside down like that, which will give it all a nice chance to dry, while I deal with the inside. Now I've got these two bits of card, and I have this piece of paper which is single-sided. Could have been a nicer match, but this doesn't always happen, and these should, with a bit of finagling, fit in. I managed to get it to do it with another one, so this is probably a slightly bigger box, so that is not going to work, so bear with, and I'll go and get some more paper. Right, I'm back, and it was a good stopping place because I was also about to run out of battery. Okay, I've got 2 sheets this time because this is a slightly wider box, and this is a paper I don't like, so that's perfect for the lining. So obviously I'm going to want the nice side inside, so I'm going to be sticking this to the back, like so. Now again, sorry, test your paper direction, which feels the floppiest, which this does, because it means it's going to bend more easily. So again, actually I'll do it this way round. Have the rough side in or not? Which will stick better? No, I'll do it this way, as long as I'm consistent, that's the main thing. Otherwise I'll have 2 lefts or something. So, once more. Now with this one I don't need a bottom margin as such, although if the side is a little bit short and you want to move it up, you might want to. That's alright sitting there for a second. How do I check? Just slide it in and see how far it goes down. If that's touching the bottom, oh, I'm going to have a gap. Yes, I need to move it up, so I'll have a little tiny sliver of a bottom margin. Okay, so that will stick on there. Little bit of a bottom margin and a little bit sticking out on the side, and yes, I have a reason for that, because you remember where I cut the little sliver off here and here, that will compensate. So I just want my big scissors, and I'm going to give myself a bit of a margin again. Once more, I am not worried about this being perfect. This is going to want to fold over, so I shall snip slightly to the corner there and snip that over. And the same here, slightly to the corner, and again like so. So it's unfortunate I've got a lot of glue on the back of this, but you'd be surprised once it's dried somewhere out the way, it should be okay. I'll take that bit off of that, and again that will still be usable for something else. It won't wrinkle up badly, so it will be fine. Right, I'll just turn my huge piece of scrap paper around. This paper was awful. I was given it. It isn't good enough to use for artwork. It's really only for pasting on. It's very, very thin and it's not nice. So it's perfect for pasting. Get that out of the way again. Always check you haven't got any glue underneath, because you just know it's going to ruin whatever you're doing otherwise. So that's all tucked down like so. My other little folder, there we go. So that's how it's going to look from the inside. Now the first thing I need to do here is check it's going to crease, so I just need to bend that over while it's still on the wet side. I am not bending these up, I need them to be straight. I'm just bending these 2 side pieces. So if you just help it along by having a folder there. Now you see what's happening, it's trying to really bunch in the middle there, so just let that come along and it should adjust itself, and then you can just flatten out again. Now that is as flat as a proverbial pancake and looking good. Right, so that's piece number 1. So that's just going to sit upside down so I don't get that in my way. And I'm going to do the same again. Check the direction. See, that doesn't want to, that's bouncy. that side's floppier, so that's the way the creases are going to go. This way you're not having to worry about pre-scoring, things fighting you and all of that. So again, I'm doing it on the shiny side. Always make sure your two sides are facing, otherwise you're going to have two left feet, as it were. Plenty of glue, you don't need to be shy. And I'm not too worried about moving the excess off either. So again, I'll just leave myself a tiny little bit at the bottom. Now then, you see I didn't cut that straight, did I? This is where this does need to be straight, so if in doubt... See, I'm rubbish even with a paper cutter. It's unfortunate, but there you go. Right, so once more, I'm going to give that the slightest space there. I'm giving myself a margin. It looks nicer to have a folded edge than to have a cut edge. You could cut exactly to that line if you want to. Nobody's saying you can't. It's your gadget. You do what you want. I personally like to have a folded edge because I do think it looks nicer and it will cover up any bloopers you may or may not have done. Right here, can you see that is not exact to that corner line, so I'm just going to skinny that along. I don't want that poking up there. Perfect, so you can correct yourself as you go. Right, so that's all fine there. That's absolutely fine there. And I just need some glue on these edges to stick down. Do I have a lump there? Yes, I do. I'm afraid I tend to do an awful lot by eye rather than by how everybody else does it, because life is too short, quite frankly, and I can't be bothered. Right, you're down, and you're down. Good. You've lifted up, I'm not happy. Right, and again, I better use the dry one in case of. Just lift that away if it doesn't want to fold. In fact, I'll lift that up. Let's go over first. That does need to crease because don't forget you've got the loose bit at the bottom, so just check that's happy. Fold that back over, stand it up, and then you can just burnish that, and you've got a lovely flat edge there. This one is going to be the same, and that one was more malleable, maybe because I let the glue settle longer. Anyway, that's now happy as well. So far so good. We'll set them on one side. I'm bringing this back again, my big piece. Now this is where I want to do my hole punch. Now I've got a big shot. This is big enough you could get in and do a pokey tool from the inside or the outside, probably from the inside. I am guesstimating that's roughly in the middle, and it's so far down. If it isn't exact, well, the art police aren't going to get me for it, are they? And I have these little things. These were Tonic Studios Forever Moments, and these are probably so old now I doubt you could even get them. I just bought a load at the show when I was there, well, it must be about 3 or 4 years ago, so goodness knows. But a paper fastener, a button, anything. I mean, glue it on the outside. I'm doing mine this way, you don't have to, just because it's me. and then I'm just flattening those ends out like so, as flat as I can get them, and handle of the scissors as well always helps. Just push them down. Now look, I've got a double layer, so that is not going to pull out in a hurry. Right, now the very last step is to glue these in. So one will go that side like so, and the other will go on the other side, and you will just shove them down to where you want them, and it's going to look beautiful. So I'll have a bit of dry paper. I'll glue these over here. Again, plenty of glue. I'm not deliberately going out of eye shot, I'm just deliberately going out of having the glue directly underneath me exactly where I'm going to want to go, because you can guarantee that's what's going to happen. So again, you see I've got glue there, so I'm moving away from it, although I'm getting into dangerous areas here. Now, should you find that your bit at the bottom is too long here, you can just push on it and it'll kind of curve its way round into the bottom. Okay, so here I am, that's my first piece. Let the folds happen and you'll find it a lot easier to get this to go in. Ugh, glue again. Therewith. Now you can see if I'd have done a longer fold over at the top there, that would have been fine. So I'm actually going to just fetch this up to cover that edge. If you weren't happy with that, you can always use something else completely different, such as a washi tape or something. Now you see that's going over that edge of the fastening, so that's now invisible. That's gone almost down to the bottom. Now you're asking yourself, why bother? Do you really need this piece in? The reason I'm doing it is because it's going to give double strength to the walls, the sides here, and it really makes a difference. If I just take this other one out, rock solid. And doesn't it look nice when it's got a lining? You don't have to, you could just put in the box. You could decide you want a different piece of cardboard. It doesn't actually matter. The main thing is that you have that strength so that when you've got everything leaning in it, it's not going to tear, and particularly it is not going to tip. Because if I'm putting in my dies and I've got them matching with the stamp sets, you can be talking quite a bit of weight. And I'm absolutely sick of all my stuff falling over, basically. It is really tiresome. I'm fed up of it. I craft in my living room because in London, if you have a one-bedroom flat, you're doing very well, and it's probably the equivalent price of a three-bedroom house anywhere else in the country, as anybody would know. I mean, you'd pay about £500,000, £500,000 for something the size of a garage if you're in Knightsbridge. That's if you could find one. So even though we're in Greater London, which is more on the outskirts, it is still very, very expensive. And I've got glue there. So I have to do it all in my living room, which means I have very little space. Everything is on show, so if it's on show it might as well look nice as not. Right, so there we are. That's that. Let's wipe my fingers again. And you can see where those were too wide, I have a nice overlap. But the overlap is paper, so it's not actually giving me any extra thickness as such. And this is where I can now get my hand in and give it a really good burnishing. make sure all the sides are stuck. And that, my friends, is that. The final step, that hasn't stuck at the bottom, rats. I'll just hold that down a minute. The final step is I like to do the inside of the bottom as well. I know you can't see it. It's only that little tiny bit there, but I like to. I've got enough paper, so why not? So again, I'll just do the height, or rather I should say the width, which will be about here, and the thickness, which will be about here, and I'll just cut that sliver out and shove it in, and then that is it. Job done. And of course I had to put that straight on the paper cutter I was just looking for. Anybody who knows me, the biggest pile of rubbish is usually where the bit is that I'm just happen to be looking for. Right, this is that We Are Memory Keepers thing. Don't know whether I like it or not. I never know what to do with that bit. Always seems to be in my way. Anyway, not to worry. It's doing the job. So final bit, little bit of glue again. Now normally, if I wasn't demonstrating this, I would have let the outer covers dry overnight, then I'd have done the inside so that all the cardboard has a good long time to dry. In this instance I've done everything all in one session. I think from start to finish, including having to stop because my husband came in and wanted a cup of tea, which he made, bless him, and also my having to do a different battery and get some more paper. I think it's been an hour from start to finish, and I have taken my time. I haven't rushed any of this. There you are, you can just about see the inside, and that's it. It's done. What I will do once this is completely dry is I'll take some still shots with my storage stuff inside it and with it on the shelf. Anyway, thank you for watching. It's firstfloorflat.blogspot.co.uk, and I'll put the link underneath. Thank you again for watching, and goodbye.